All right, how y'all doing? I'm back again. Yeah, it took me a little while, but finally got finished the book. Here it is right here. All right, the Kevin Powell Reader. Okay, I really want to talk about him. You know what I'm saying? Because I was a fan. I actually went and saw him give a speech one time. And I've been following him off and on. When he was a writer at Vibe. You know what I'm saying? And I ain't gonna lie, I read a couple of his books, which are essay collections. I saw some of his poems, but not a lot. You know what I'm saying? But then once I found out that he had a reader, I was like, whoa, okay, cool. I can get a compilation of all this stuff. I grew up with him. He's only about, well, no, he's a lot. He's about 10 years, I think, older than me. So, and he was writing when I was like in high school, early 20s. So I said, you know what, hey, nostalgically, let me look him up. And I've, kept up with him over the years. So let me just look at all his stuff. I've looked at it individually. So let me look at it as a reader. And, basically it's a compilation of like stuff like his various magazine articles, not just the Vibe. He's written in tons of magazines, various excerpts from his essay collections, because I don't believe he's written nonfiction. He's actually had two books that he edited. I read both of them. I don't think his first one, I don't think I completed, but I read most of it. And then his next one, Step Into the World, when he was trying to, document the word movement because of spoken word. I think I've read that about 2, maybe 3 times. It's excellent, basically, it's people in my generation, and it was a compilation of everything. I mean, fiction, nonfiction, poetry, news articles, whatever. So, I decided, hey, let me go check him out with his reader. And, kind of mixed results, I realized that, basically what he talks about is never pretty much universal. He's talking about whatever it is of the day. Like I have a list here, like, he talked about, Katrina, OJ Simpson trial, Death Row Records, which was really big in the 90s. The Dream Team, of course, another thing back in the 90s, early 90s, September 11th, police shooting of Freddie Gray and other tons of shootings that so many I can't really complete here. Donald Trump presidency, the Black Panther movie, the coronavirus outbreak, lockdown, Kendrick Lamar, and the list goes on. Basically, whatever the big thing in the news, he basically talked about. That's what he wrote his essays and blah, blah, blah. And, basically he just commented on like the trials and tribulations of whatever was going on. All of the systemic, like, prejudices like racism. He also amazingly, talked about misogyny and anti-gay and anti-trans, anti-LGBT plus stuff. A lot of poverty. And something I realized that I actually read a lot of these pieces already. You know what I'm saying? Not all of them, but most of them and stuff. And it's been so long, and I was looking back, teenager with Vibe, early 20s with his first books and poetry that he wrote in the compilations, or was interspersed with his essays. Sorry, I didn't write fiction. So it was, like I said, took back to a time when I was a kid, teenager in the early 20s. Basically, Powell basically takes the, perspective as activists. So that's the reason why he comments on all these societal ills and stuff, and has to put his 2 cents in on stuff like the OJ Simpson and how that, not only showed the race relations, but also class and stuff, and celebrities getting away with stuff. And like I said, talk about, prejudice, racism, sexism, all the rest of that. Talked about the culture, of course he talked about, how we, the dollar was more important. They talked about the court system and failure to reform, stuff like that, taxes, whatever. He talked about it all. He had a comment on it. As far as like him talking about it and of course examining it and preaching about it, as far as like his solutions, he puts down a lot of what ifs. He doesn't put down something, he's very descriptive, but as far as proscriptive, like a solution, he doesn't really give that like a systematic, like, okay, this is how we can change it formally and informally. He basically gives a lot of aspirations, like what ifs. So he really doesn't have a lot of solutions. So he just pretty much just comments and stuff. He's kind of a little bit of a pundit, but not really. He's just a commentator. He basically, I kind of realized that he is an op-ed writer. You know what I'm saying? People in, the newspaper who are assigned to talk about whatever is the big thing in your city at the time, or the state or the country, whatever, whatever your thing is, local or national or international. Man, pretty much that's what he's made his living on as far as magazines and, his essay books are pretty much a repeat of his magazine articles. His poems are pretty much op-ed pieces too, but in rhyme. I look back at him and I think, he was special to be just because he was writing at the time of my youth. Like I said, he came on the scene about 1992 because he actually started MTV. That's how we first know him. He actually, that same year that he appeared on MTV The Real World and stuff, and he was a black conscious guy up in there and stuff, his first compilation anthology of editing like young black writers like around the world and stuff of like fiction, nonfiction, poetry, it also came out in 1992. And then he also was hired by Vibe magazine in 1992. So 1992 was a big year, and that was the year, like that was like the end of my freshman year in high school. So from that time to just keep on writing, he was kind of like Prince, just always there. So I kind of put a nostalgia into him. But now that I'm older and I'm kind of looking back on him, I realized that his writing was like, it was kind of okay. It's not really impressive. Anyone can do what he did. He didn't really stand out from other people at the time when he came out in 1992 in the early 90s till now. He's not very deep when you actually look at it, even in his books. I can understand with a magazine article, you only have so much time to go. And then with a poem, poems, unless you were doing long form poems, you can't really go that deep. And then that's just kind of abstract. But his books, even in his books, he didn't really go that deep. So, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, his solutions weren't deep neither. They were not concrete solutions like that people can actually try out. They were just more aspirations, like what if? Like what if we weren't bigots? What if we weren't sexist and stuff like that? So he really wasn't, he's not a profound thinker. He just gives his opinion. Like I said, he's really not deep. He's really good at reporting of facts, but he doesn't really provide any insight or give a unique perspective. You know what I'm saying? So, I think I kind of just, because he's like a little bit older, so 10 years, that's pretty much, like my sister, she's like 7.5 years older than me, so he was just like a big brother, you know what I'm saying? And, so I kind of look back and I realized that it was my youth that I, humorized him. So since he was still young, and then he was up on The Real World, so I got to saw an artist. He was like, I think 25 when they were filming it. So he was still young, and I was just in high school. So I was like 14, 15 years old. So I was impressionable. And, when you're young, and then when he was on The Real World, he would like talk to all the white people up on there about the prejudice society. He would hold them accountable and challenge them and stuff. And I like that. You know what I'm saying? Now I'm not so much impressed with that because anyone can do that. And then, when you look back, it's like, man, he was just a angry dude. You know what I'm saying? You can be a social justice warrior, social activist, but you don't have to. You don't have to be an asshole like he was about it. You know what I'm saying? So, it's funny how now it's like, what, 30 years later, being 2023, it's like 31 years later when I was first introduced to him, and I was a teenager just getting into high school. Now I'm an adult. I look back and I'm just like, damn, this dude is not really that special. You know what I'm saying? I mean, hey, it takes courage, to go up here and stand for what you believe in and stuff. But then, like in his autobiography, which came out about 2018, so about 5 years ago, and I read it right away and I went right through it. You look at it and realize that he was really just an angry young man who was pissed off, because he didn't have a father. He grew up in poverty. When he was talking about his mother, you could tell that she was like dysfunctional. So, he didn't really have a good upbringing, and he had a problem with violence. He had a lot of physical confrontations, like from high school all the way up through college. And he's even admit that he's had, violence in his relationships. And once you get to know a person, it's really not that impressive. You realize that he's really just an angry dude, but he was blessed with being articulate, and then he can write. Like I said, he's not an impressive writer, but he can write. He can communicate. And as you can see, he looks like a kind of intellectual boho. You know what I'm saying? Look at him. And then the way they cut him, even though they made him look angry on MTV and stuff, they did make it look like he was a social justice fighter, because they did show him mentoring young men, which I can relate to. They show him at protests and stuff. So they kind of allayed the fact that he was an angry young man. You know what I'm saying? And they showed that, made it look like that anger was passionate. But now I look back and realize that he was just an angry young man, and he really wasn't any more important or insightful than anyone else. He just could communicate and write. Because like I said, I've been in person and watched his speeches. I've seen recordings of his speeches. He's very articulate, a really good speaker, charismatic. And then same thing in his writing. This was an easy read. It's not complicated. He doesn't use a lot of big dictionary words. He really has a conversational style. You know what I'm saying? But I have to say, even in those speeches, like when I saw it, when I've seen him live, you can see the anger come out with him that he's had. You could tell that he's had an anger problem. He probably still has an anger problem. He's admitted in his books and in his autobiography, he has an anger problem. So yeah, it's kind of funny how, you look back and initially you was impressed with someone, but then you kind of look back over the years, and then he even admits himself, he was just an asshole who could write. You know what I'm saying? So, if you are a person that is, into social justice and stuff like that, or you really like commentary and kind of look back on like the last 30 years of our society and what was happening and stuff, this is the person for you. So, he's very much a cultural critic. And he does a good job reporting the facts and gives his opinion and stuff, but when you look back, anyone could do that. Any writer can do that. And there are writers out there who do it and do it better than him. But he lucked up, and I really think that his being on MTV, that really made him. I mean, because he had a built-in audience. I mean, like like me, I was a teenager. I was a freshman in high school, and I've stayed with him 30 years later. I have to admit, if I did not see him on MTV, I would probably seen his stuff and kept on walking. But I saw the name on books, remember him from, oh, that's a guy from MTV, and boom. But then when you think about it, that's probably good marketing on excuse me that's probably good now to think about it, that's good marketing on him and his agents, behalf, because of that, he had a built-in audience that he wouldn't have had if he would have just been a writer. You know, because other writers, same age as him, did the same thing. I did not know about. You know, and I've come across over the years who've written around the same time that actually write better than him. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I think now to look back, it's a combination of opportunity, getting advertisement with MTV that automatically brought him an audience that has stayed with him. Here I am, 31 years later, and I've read most of his books. You know, not all of them, but most of them, or at least skimmed some of them. Read most of them. His individual poetry stuff, I haven't read all of it, but his essays I have. And like I said, I've read the two editing compilations. I've read his autobiography. I've read this. So yeah, I think it was it was luck. You know, he lucked up on MTV, got advertising, which caters to youth, and we stayed with him, and that made his career. So yeah, if you are like my age, part of Generation X and stuff, and you want to remember the times and stuff, boom, read him. Or if you're not part of Generation X, you're new to these people, millennials or Gen Zs and stuff, and want to know, hey, what's up with Gen X? Read this. If you're older and you're part of the Boomer generation, or if you're the silent generation still around, this will tell you about them and stuff. If you just like op-ed pieces or social justice, this is the guy. But don't expect anything really profound and stuff. You know what I'm saying? So, just want something to read about the last 30 years, this is the guy. So, all right, till next time, later.